NASA astronauts at a Russian launch just after midnight Friday. The Crew 8 mission calls for them to spend almost 6 months at the International Space Station. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
At age 39, LeBron James is showing us he can still take over a game and dominate. With the Lakers down by 21 to the Clippers last night early in the fourth quarter, LeBron led a comeback that resulted in a highly important 4-point win for the Lakers. LeBron scored 19 of his 34 points in the fourth quarter, 15 of those points coming on 5 3-pointers. Last night's game was the 5th time this season LeBron has scored 30 or more after turning 39 on December 30th. Former USC quarterback Caleb Williams, projected to be the #1 pick in the NFL draft, said he would be excited to play for the Chicago Bears if the Bears select him. Williams shot down rumors that he didn't want to play for the Bears. The Bears have the #1 pick, but they are entertaining trade offers for the pick and their quarterback Justin Fields. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Recently, the Washington Post ran a major story which in sum reveals that racial discrimination in jury selection persists in America. Most often, the practice occurs through a legal tactic called peremptory challenge, which allows an attorney to strike a potential juror without having to state a reason. In the 1986 Batson Doctrine, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the use of peremptory challenges to exclude potential jurors solely based on their race violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. By the way, the late great Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall despised peremptory challenges. New data in the Washington Post story underscores that nearly 40 years after the Batson decision, the problem remains widespread. One study in the Deep South found that black jurors are being challenged and dismissed at double and triple the rates of other prospective jurors. Bottom line, it's racist, it's wrong, and it's pervasive, even as research shows that racially diverse juries spend more time deliberating, make fewer errors, and can result in fairer trials. One of the arguments in the Ninth Circuit appeal, brought by former LA City Councilman Mark Ridley Thomas, is about violation of that Batson Doctrine. In its case against MRT, the U.S. Attorney's Office struck black women from the jury pool based on demeanor and employment status, a clear violation of the law. A long list of high-profile black law professors, historians, and justice centers have now filed amicus briefs in support of MRT's position. But the irony of a black elected official who for more than 3 decades represented the best interests of his black constituents, having black women voters struck from his jury pool is repugnant and morally wrong. So much for being judged by a jury of your peers. MRT's legal team argues correctly in its filing that given well-established law and legal principles set forth by the Supreme Court, Ninth Circuit, and state courts and legislatures, the Ninth Circuit should likewise reaffirm and clearly state that applying facially neutral justifications in discriminatory ways to target black women and other protected groups presumptively violates Batson. I couldn't agree more. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley. We welcome your comments.
KBLA Talk 1580. Okay, so I got it flipped around. We'll be talking with Congresswoman Katie Porter in the second half of this hour. But we are celebrating the bonus day of Black History Month, our leap year day today, by talking a little bit about labor as it manifests today when we are making history. As I always say, history is now. We're making it together. So I'm being joined right now by a labor organizer. You might have heard about him from his work around the Amazon campaign in Staten Island. That's in borough of New York. He's the president and founder of the Amazon Labor Union since 2021. Actually a former rap artist, but has become a labor organizer even beyond Amazon, and one of the founders of a group called the Congress of Essential Workers, which I think led to the formation of the ALU. Chris Smalls, welcome.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on. So a lot of conversation right now about the resurgence of unions, which I hope is true. And I feel like one of the big reasons for that is the work of folks like yourself. So kind of, if you don't mind, give us a little bit of the story about how you became active as a labor organizer.
Yeah, absolutely. 4 years ago, 2020, the pandemic, I was fired from Amazon in Staten Island after working for them for 5 years, being an assistant manager for 4.5 years, opening up 3 warehouses in the tri-state area. And when I was fired from Amazon, not only did I hit rock bottom and lose everything after pouring my blood, sweat, and tears into the company, Jeff Bezos, who was the CEO at the time and the richest man in the world, somebody who was making $9 million an hour, almost $5,000 a second, signed up on a smear campaign saying that I was not smart or articulate, ironically, to make me the face of the whole unionizing efforts against Amazon. So 4 years ago, I decided that that's when I'm going to take action and fight back. And that's when I founded the Congress of Essential Workers. And we traveled the country protesting in front of Jeff Bezos' mansions all the way out here to Beverly Hills. And after that, we decided to go back home and begin the campaign of our independent union at the building that fired me in Staten Island, JFK 8. And for over 300 days, an 11-month campaign, I stayed outside at a bus stop, earning the trust and building relationships with workers. And on April 1st of 2022, we became the first union in American history for Amazon workers. And that's pretty much the basics of my journey, but it's so very new. It still feels surreal to me. And LA is very special to me because for the first time in 2020, I came out here and joined BLMA on the ground. And that really inspired me and motivated me to continue the work that I'm doing.
When that must have been really strange to be targeted by the richest man in the world saying that you're dumb. I mean, just even for him to single you out like that must have been really weird.
Well, yeah, weird and racist. And
yeah, that too, right?
Something that they, this is unfortunately a stigma that's been, handed down by capitalists for a very long time. A stigma that, Black people are lazy, we're not smart or articulate enough to articulate our issues and struggles is something that unfortunately is used against us when it comes to whistleblowing or telling the truth about these corporations. And the fact that the richest man in the world was going to do this was really alarming. But once again, that also motivated me to fight back because what happened to me shouldn't happen to anybody, and I didn't want to have to see that happen. So had to take action.
It sounds like the ultimate case of a thing backfiring. on him, that is. Where are you now? I mean, there's been a lot of talk, I think, this week about there's a new president at Starbucks, and they're going to stop being so anti-union that they're back to negotiating with workers about a union. I don't know if that's going to impact other situations like Amazon, and so many of our other, fast food workers and other essential workers that have been really pushing for living wages and better working conditions. What are you hearing, if anything, about that?
Yeah, that's a very huge victory for labor in general. Congratulations to the Starbucks Workers United. I've definitely been supportive of their movement. They actually won the same day we won. So we're hand in hand when it comes to the fight. And
when you say you won, what does that consist of? What does we won mean?
Meaning that 2 years ago, we both made history. The Amazon workers and Starbucks workers, the same day, I believe. They won their union, and we won our union.
Right, you're talking about the recognition of the union, right? But not all of the demands yet.
No, not a contract.
Yeah,
we won the union, not a contract.
Right.
And so to have a step in the right direction, that's very huge for labor. But we still have a long way to go, and I hope that they're able to get everything that they're asking for. And right now we have to build up our super team on labor side. These other corporations, Starbucks, SpaceX, Amazon, Trader Joe's, has partnered up with a billionaire super team to challenge the NLRA and do away with the whole NLRB system and set us back over 100 years.
National Labor Relations Board, for those who aren't following. Yeah, right. Which would mean that it would just basically either cease to exist or become 100% toothless.
Absolutely. So I'm happy that the Starbucks Workers United is spearheading and getting a contract, and I'm hoping that these other CEOs catch up, because workers are upset in this country, and we're not going to back down. We're not going to stand down. We're going to continue to fight and organize. So it's best in their interest to organize, to help by coming to the table and bargaining with their workers.
You are going to be... Whoa, okay. You're going to be, I don't know what the sound was, but we'll work around it. You've got a couple of events coming up. You will be in Los Angeles tomorrow, I think.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I'll be there.
Tell us about Americon. What you're presenting this film, right?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be in this amazing film called Americon, which explains the economic injustice that's been happening to this country for the last 40, 50 years, and even beyond that. And I was one of the stories, one of the people in the film, my story, and I hope people watch it because it really gives you an insight on how we became the type of country that we are economically, but also includes the labor struggle as well. So tomorrow, Los Angeles, I will be at Strategy and Soul Center on Martin Luther King in the morning, and then in the evening, I will be at the LA Trade Tech Center, and I hope people are able to come out and support this film and spread it, because I think it's necessary, and I hope that it ignites people and motivate people to organize their spaces.
Strategy and Souls at 3546 Martin Luther King Boulevard. You might have seen it. You may never have been in there. It's right near Crenshaw. And then there is a screening, this one also I see by the LA Black Worker Center, which is Saturday at 11:30. LA Black Worker Center is 5350 Crenshaw Boulevard. And they're doing a Q&A with you afterwards, which is awesome. And then you mentioned LA Trade Tech. That's Friday night?
Absolutely, yeah. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m.
All right. I want to continue the conversation with labor activist Chris Smalls when we come forward. If you've got a question or you want to hop in, 800-920-1580. That's the number. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
I can't believe tax season is here already. Look at all this info I have to enter.
Phil's small accounting firm is growing in numbers.
Why didn't I take that typing class in high school?
A data entry specialist could really help him in a crunch.
I got blisters on my fingers.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, I have a secret. I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? You know, my...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness. From my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams, too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
City of Los Angeles tenants know these facts about eviction and consumer debt. Tenants can't be evicted if rental arrears are eligible to be treated as consumer debt. Tenants who followed certain COVID-19 pandemic protections under state law can't be evicted for past due rent. Landlords can collect rental arrears in court as consumer debt, but tenants cannot be evicted if they provided a declaration of COVID-19 hardship and paid 25% of rent owed. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
It's never been faster or easier to be a voter. Look for your vote by mail ballot in the mail. Fill it in and drop it off at a mailbox on your way to work, on your daily walk, or when dropping the kids off at school. Save time and vote early. Make a plan to vote at plan.lavote.gov. That's plan.lavote.gov. Brought to you by the Los Angeles County Registrar.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome back indeed. Happy you're here. Chris Smalls is my guest. He's a union organizer. He's got a couple of events coming up in LA if you want to connect. Strategy and Soul Theater is Friday night at 6 p.m. That's 3546 Martin Luther King Boulevard. The film is called Americonned, like America, but then conned. And then you have the Black Workers Center Saturday at 11:30 a.m. and I guess Friday night at Trade Tech. Chris Smalls, you know, the way that we hear about the Amazon labor union getting, you know, the way it's reported on in the news, it's like you had a victory and then became marginalized or became ineffective. The contract's still not in place. From what I understand, Amazon continues to implement new policies that make it harder and harder to organize, such as, you know, workers aren't allowed to be in the buildings when it's when it's not the time for their shift and things like that. How do you assess where the union is right now in relation to actually getting a contract?
Yeah, well, we're still in the infancy stage. You know, we just got certified last year, you know, less than a year ago, January. And, you know, our certification was after being in court, even after we won for a number of months. And this is a bigger problem that we have, not with just Amazon workers, as I mentioned, you know, Starbucks, Trader Joe's, people that organize other independent unions and actually just won their unions. We're not able to get to these contracts right away because the federal laws in this country haven't been changed or updated, as you say, until the centuries that we are living in. You know, some of these laws haven't been changed since the 1930s. As we've seen last year, Joe Biden used the Railroad Strike Act from 1945 to break the strike in East Palestine, Ohio, when there was a train crash. So these laws are outdated. These laws are weak. There's no accountability for these billionaire corporation CEOs. And because of that, the NLRB is very underfunded and very understaffed. So for us, we're not only battling our corporations, we're battling these government entities that don't have the funding and resources to protect workers and to update these laws the way they need to.
Yeah.
So what I see an opportunity for labor leaders, not just myself, to hold these politicians accountable. We need people in office that's going to put something in black and white on a federal level to help people unionize and organize their workplace.
Yeah, it's a great point. Reading that 380 Starbucks stores are unionized, but they still don't have a contract. And it's interesting you said that about Biden, because we say, well, this is, a labor-friendly administration. That Palestine, union busting move notwithstanding, we think of the Biden administration as being pro-labor. He's certainly the first president to walk a picket line with UAW, but yet there's what I'm hearing in the streets and what I'm reading. There's a movement of people within organized labor towards Trump and towards the MAGA movement. How do you explain that, or how do you process it?
Yeah, I don't understand it. I'm gonna be honest, and that's the problem that I have with other labor leaders, is that we can't talk out of both sides of our mouth. For example.
I'm laughing because you sound so New Jersey. My family's from Jersey. You sound like you could be one of my brothers. But go ahead. Sorry.
Born and raised, yeah. We can't talk out of both sides of our mouths. For example, I love everything the UAW's done over the past year with the strikes, but we can't call for ceasefire and then endorse Joe Biden. This doesn't work that way. And the same thing, I love the work that the Teamsters have done on the ground in the picketing of the UPS, but they can't be meeting with President Trump, former President Trump, and saying, we're going to help workers. It just doesn't work that way. So we got to take stances and we got to stand on business. And for us labor leaders, once again, we got to put in office politicians that actually represent the working class, not with corporate interests, not the ones that take money from these corporations and billionaires. We got to get that type of money out of politics. And we need to put people in office that not just show up to rallies a few times, but they also help create the movement that we're fighting for. And that's the difference that I've seen in my short time of organizing. I mean,
and to what extent is it a matter of degrees? I mean, because, I know that, Joe Biden has appointed, very pro-labor folks in the Department of Labor and elsewhere. But then you're telling me the National Labor Relations Board is understaffed and has a measly budget. That seems contradictory.
That's true, though, and that's what we mean. Like, we got to call these things out and be truthful to each other and truthful with the public. Joe Biden is not the most pro-union president in history. That is a myth. That is something that he's using because labor has been on the resurgence in this country. But we can't allow politicians to use the work that we did. We organized, not Joe Biden and that administration. And I'm happy that the administration is more progressive, but that doesn't mean anything, once again, when the federal laws in this country hasn't been touched.
Right.
So they don't have much power. And when you have a $1 trillion company like Amazon that has nothing to do but spend millions of dollars on lawyers, they hold us in court for years. So that is the plan. We know the plan. We know their strategy. We know the opposition, what they're doing, but we haven't been effective in getting to the root cause of the issue, which is changing these federal laws. If Joe Biden claims he's the most pro-labor president in history, then he needs to put it in writing in black and white.
Who is the most pro-labor president in history? I guess I never really broke that down.
Well, I can tell you I haven't seen one in my lifetime. And I'm 35 years old. I'm 35 years old, so we to be honest with you, once again, we need a different party to get out of this two-party system. And I visited countries that have a labor party, and a labor party is 1/3 of their government, and these workers have a voice. And there's countries that have higher union density than we do in America, and I'm hoping one day that we'll be able to get to that.
Have a labor party. Well, we're definitely not getting there by 2024. So what ought we be doing? I mean, when it comes to supporting labor? Do we boycott? Do we boycott? How do you, as a person who's not a worker at Starbucks or Amazon or, so many of these other companies that are trying to unionize and trying to get real solid contracts, how do we support?
Well, number one, go watch the movie American because you'll learn things and you'll get inspired and you'll get fired up. I promise you that once you watch the movie. And number two, I always say this in my talks, the revolution starts with yourself. And that means you got to take a chance and you got to talk to your loved ones, your family, your mom, your dad, your friends, your neighbors. You got to get them into the fight and educate them because the education of real labor history is missing in this country. We don't know our rights as young adults. If you'd have told me that I could be as cool as a union organizer, as a rapper when I was in high school 10, 20 years ago, I would have been doing this work a long time ago. But because, unionizing is not appealing to the younger generation as it once was, it is now. It's starting to get that way. The education with these teacher unions, bringing in labor leaders like myself and others, instead of bringing in the traditional firefighters and police officers on career day. We got to start to do that. And we have to educate the youth and the younger generation so that they are prepared and know their workers' rights as they enter the workforce. And at the same time, walking through bubblegum at the same time. We have to hold people accountable. We got to take stances. And as labor leaders, we got to be out on the picket lines and get the community to come join us because labor is the basis of our democracy. And no matter what movement you're in, whether it's environmental, social injustice, women's rights, Black Lives Matter, etc., it doesn't matter. You're a worker at the end of the day, and we're all a part of the working class.
Okay, well, The Nation magazine says it's Franklin Roosevelt. I'll give it to Roosevelt because he actually was the one who started the NLRB. There would be no NLRB if it wasn't for Franklin Roosevelt. So, I don't know, till I hear different or until you get elected, we're going to go with that.
Right.
A lot of these, whether even fast food workers, we've had that whole dust up in the state of California where fast food workers, they pass a measure and then the big companies come in and they squash it and they hold it up in court.
Right.
And, a lot of these things like Amazon and Starbucks, they're addictive, right? As a consumer, there's a Starbucks everywhere. It's just easier to order something from Amazon. But we do want to do the right thing and support you specifically with the Amazon strike or the Amazon, I shouldn't say strike, labor actions. How can we be allies?
Absolutely. Well, once again, spread the message, get involved. If you can, if you see a call to action, we have a building out here in Moreno Valley. If you know people out that way, please join them. But follow us on our social media platforms at Amazon Labor Union. And also email us, info@amazonlaborunion.org, our website, amazonlaborunion.org for updates. We encourage people to reach out. We have people call our offices, visit us from all over the world every single day, every single week. We love to see that. And we want to continue to plant the seeds. That's why I'm here in LA, California, planting the seeds. And I'll be returning back home. And then after that, the journey continues. We want to continue planting the seeds as much as possible.
Excellent.
And educate the community and our neighbors and our loved ones. Because in the next few years, 1 out of every 4 Americans are going to work for this company or have worked for this company. So our fight is your fight.
Chris Moss, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
News, traffic, and sports. Then we'll be talking to Katie Porter, the Congresswoman, when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique Baraka DiPrima when we come forward.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Thursday with us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest. New York State Police are investigating after an envelope containing white powder was sent to the office of African-American Attorney General Letitia James. No one was injured after her office received the envelope, which has been sent to a lab to be tested. An envelope with white powder was also sent to the judge who oversaw Donald Trump's civil fraud case. An upcoming launch could light up the Florida sky if the weather cooperates. 3 NASA astronauts and a Russian cosmonaut are due to blast off in a Crew Dragon spacecraft called Endeavour. The capsule will be on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket that's expected to launch just after midnight Friday. The Crew 8 mission calls for them to spend almost 6 months at the International Space Station. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
At age 39, LeBron James is showing us he can still take over a game and dominate. With the Lakers down by 21 to the Clippers last night early in the fourth quarter, LeBron led a comeback that resulted in a highly important 4-point win for the Lakers. LeBron scored 19 of his 34 points in the fourth quarter, 15 of those points coming on 5 3-pointers. Last night's game was the 5th time this season LeBron has scored 30 or more after turning 39 on December 30th. Former USC quarterback Caleb Williams, projected to be the #1 pick in the NFL draft, said he would be excited to play for the Chicago Bears if the Bears select him. Williams shot down rumors that he didn't want to play for the Bears. The Bears have the #1 pick, but they are entertaining trade offers for the pick and their quarterback Justin Fields. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
And welcome back indeed. We are your election information station. We're on a mission to make sure you're ready for this election, which is going on right now. The ballots are out. The election centers are open, and the last day to vote is Tuesday. Joining me right now, the Congresswoman representing the 47th District. She is actually famous for questioning folks in congressional hearings, famous for her use of the whiteboard. She says she's to hold people with power accountable, from big bank CEOs to Trump administration officials. And she is currently seeking your vote to be the next U.S. Senator from California. Congresswoman Katie Porter, welcome.
for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. I think, you have become famous for sort of speaking truth to power, calling stuff out with diagrams. You say that that's because, well, my understanding, I'm reading your bio and just watching you, is that that's because you don't see yourself as a politician.
Look, before I ran for Congress, which was only 5 or 6 years ago, I was a consumer protection advocate. I got my start in public service, helping families who were cheated by predatory lenders, and they were being cheated again in the foreclosure crisis. So I didn't go to Washington to cater to corporate interests. I went to stand up for everyday families, and that's why I decided when I first ran 5 years ago never to take corporate PAC money, because I see sometimes big corporations hurting consumers, hurting employees. And so I went to Congress not to kind of do things the same way, which has not addressed all of the inequalities and struggles that we face as ordinary families, but to shake up Washington. And that's exactly what I've done.
And you said it, you've been in office there for not too long. You're one of the younger folks in Congress. Why make the move? A lot of us kind of freaked out when we first heard that because you turned a seat that could be a Republican seat in Orange County, blue, and it's not at all guaranteed that it would stay blue should you go to the U.S. Senate.
Well, we've done so much incredible work that I'm proud of, and I want to thank all of the volunteers and activists and voters who have helped us turn Orange County into a majority Democratic county, something that I think would have been unthinkable just 10 years ago. And so I think this is about making sure that we have at the top of the ticket here in this 2024 election, people who are going to be able to message and help lift up the work that President Biden and Vice President Harris have done. They have done a terrific job on bringing down costs for families and on the economy, and they need people who can message. And so I think it's important that we have folks who have different life experiences. I'm the only single mom of school-age children in the entire United States Congress, and yet that is such a common experience in California and this country. And so we need to lift up some of those voices that haven't always been heard, and we need to have people who are willing to help Democrats reach voters who we haven't always reached. And so how I won in Orange County was activating younger voters, voters of color, people who feel disaffected by politics. They think all politicians are on the take from big corporations. I'm not, and that I think is an important thing for us to have at the very top of our ticket in California, to win not just in Orange County, but win everywhere in California and around the country.
Someone said to me, and they're pretty savvy political analysts, that in the race for U.S. Senate, we don't have any bad options. So I don't know. I don't know if they forgot about Mr. Garvey, but that's saying that we don't have any bad options. And, a lot of people like your opponent, Adam Schiff, because of his work as an impeachment officer. A lot of people like Barbara Lee for many reasons, including the fact that they would like to see a black woman in the U.S. Senate. Given those good options, why are you a better option?
Yeah, so first I would just say we do have bad options in this race. And what we're seeing here, and they're the Republican options. And we're seeing here an effort by Representative Schiff, who, I have respect for what he has done in his career in Congress, who's really trying to lift up and get Steve Garvey, the Republican, into the November election. And I disagree with that because I think that we want to give Californians the good choices that they have. I want to continue to have a robust debate, whether it's with Adam Schiff or Barbara Lee, all the way through till November, talking about the issues that matter to Californians. I have tremendous respect for Congresswoman Lee, and I think there is no doubt that whoever our next senator is needs to be a champion for communities of color, for families whose needs and challenges have long been overlooked. And so I think what makes me different is I have a political skill set that is different than they do. They're both from kind of deep blue Democratic strongholds. in Oakland and in LA. And I have the ability to reach voters that the Democratic Party is struggling to connect with, including increasingly voters of color, Latino voters. We're seeing some evidence that may even include Black men. And so it's really, really important that we have someone who's a political fighter in this moment and knows how to fight and win. And the wins that we need are both at the election, on election day, but they're also then wins in Congress. So I think about the fact that during the pandemic, all of my colleagues across the country, Democratic colleagues, were trying to keep their communities safe. I went toe-to-toe with the director of the Center for Disease Control. I was the 44th member of Congress to question, the very last one, the most junior member, and I'm the one who put his feet to the fire on making COVID testing free for every single American, and I got him to promise and deliver that. And I think that's the kind of insight into what people really need. My kids would get a cough, and I would worry, do they have COVID? I don't know. I can't get a test. I went right on that plane to Washington and delivered that for California families and American families, and I'm proud of that.
Among the plans on your website, it says housing for all. I think every single aspiring elected official I've talked to this cycle says housing is a priority. If they're from California, it should be. But how do we get from point A to point B of actually having, not just housing for the unhoused, but also for those who are insecure, who are paying 50% or more of our income just to keep a roof over our head?
Absolutely. So it is heartening to hear, Dominique, that everyone is talking about this now, because at the federal level, for our people that we're sending to Washington, that has not really been true until I launched this campaign over a year ago, saying then that housing was my top issue. I think our state, county, local folks, they have been dealing with the consequences of increased homelessness and housing inaffordability, but Washington hasn't been listening to California. Part of the reason we find ourselves in California in this housing crisis is because Washington hasn't made an investment in helping families afford housing for decades now. Decades. And so, that is really why we find ourselves here. Washington needs to be a better partner, and California's top issues need to be the top issues in Washington. That's what we need from our senator. And so my Housing for All plan, I think, really proud of it. One of the things I think it focuses on is not just bringing down the costs, but also thinking about how can we create opportunity for people to be able to become homeowners at the incomes that they're earning. Right. So we need to be able to have, starter homes and entry level homes, and they can't cost $1 million. That's just wrong, and it's not going to work, particularly for communities of color who have long been shut out by racial discrimination, by redlining, by Washington overlooking their challenges from being able to have a chance to buy homes. And that problem is not going to get better unless we tackle it head on, and Washington makes a big investment, not only of dollars, but also of imagination. We need to be a country where people who work hard can own homes. That's the American dream, and we shouldn't be shutting out a generation or two of Californians, particularly Californians of color, from that dream.
One of the things I see here is protect home buyers from Wall Street greed. Housing has become a commodity rather than a right. How do you do that?
So Washington, when I saw this on the ground develop in California in 2012, 2013, when I was working on the foreclosure crisis. And Washington, this problem was happening then. People were being foreclosed on and being evicted, these predatory loans, and then there were predatory illegal foreclosures. And what was happening? Hedge funds were gobbling these single-family homes up, and that problem has only gotten worse. So we've had presidents, both Democratic and Republican, who did not tackle this problem. So it's not hard to fix this. These are for-profit hedge funds. They care only about one thing, which is their bottom line. You can tax them if they buy and hold large numbers of single-family homes. We're talking about companies, hedge funds, Wall Street firms that are buying hundreds and thousands of homes, keeping them off the market for home buyers and jacking up the rent each and every year driving up the price of homes more. So you simply tax them. You say, you want to be in this business? This is the tax consequences that you face. Look, if Washington can figure out how to give tax breaks and subsidies to big oil that is polluting our communities, especially places like Southeast LA and communities of color, then Washington can figure out how to tax Wall Street. This isn't a policy problem. It's a political one about having the courage to stand up to big banks and to Wall Street and to the ultra wealthy. And I have that courage.
As you may know, KBLA 1580 is committed to spending a year, at least the next year, focused deeply on climate justice, right? Which we've just released a polling a survey on that of Black likely voters in LA County. And we see that we, the Black voters, understand the correlation between climate justice and social justice and civil rights. I see this as one of your plans and platforms is about climate change and California's role on the front lines there. Explain to us, what you think ought to be next steps. What is the most urgent in this fight for our planet?
Yes, absolutely. So we have to be directing our investments to clean this up. And that comes in two ways. One, making sure that we are holding polluters accountable. So early in my campaign, I went to Southeast LA. I met with community leaders in Huntington Park and other places, walked the streets with them, saw some of the contamination that they're dealing with, the lack of shade, public space. We've seen clean air, clean water. We have to make sure that we're putting our dollars toward doing this and toward cleaning this up. We also have to make sure that as we move toward green energy, we are not repeating these mistakes. Every kind of energy has some kinds of negative consequences. So, for instance, as we're developing wind and solar energy, as we're thinking about the Salton Sea, we can't leave those communities and those places polluted as well. This is absolutely a civil rights issue. It is absolutely a social justice issue. What this is big oil taking advantage of the lack of political power that is a direct result of this country's legacy of racism and slavery, and the lack of civil rights, Jim Crow, voter suppression, all of these things, and using it to pollute and to harm. And let's be clear, to ultimately shorten the lifespan and hurt the quality of living of Black and brown Americans. It's a moral outrage. And we have to treat it like that. At the same time, we have to recognize that why this is happening is because we are more concerned, too many in Washington, on both sides of the aisle, have been too concerned about taking money from people like, even in my own race, I am the only candidate who's never cashed a check from an energy company, from an oil company. And so, I think it's important that we need people who are willing to fight on this issue.
California has been leading the way on reparations for Black Americans, descended of enslaved persons here in this country. Where are you on that?
I think this is an incredibly important discussion. I've been following very carefully what California has been doing. I think that we are really, as we so often have been, are at the fore of having a really important conversation about how do we make it right. And so I'm a supporter of the bill in Congress that Representative Sheila Jackson-Lee has that would create a federal commission that would, I think, model kind of what California has been starting to do, to think about what are the kinds of policies that would deliver on America's promise of equality and justice? How can we right these wrongs? And look, Washington has really long overlooked the needs of communities of color. Black Americans have worse health outcomes, are less likely to graduate from college, as we just talked about, are more likely to live in polluted neighborhoods. We have to level that playing field. And what we have been doing, the policies of the last 20 and 30 years, have not been enough. And so we really need to think about how can we sort of reset how we think about uplifting Black communities and addressing systematic inequality. It's one of the reasons I ran for office in the first place, seeing how big banks were willing to line their pockets by cheating Black families and Black neighborhoods. And so I'm really energized to take this fight and that issue to the U.S. Senate.
I mean, and so I assume that means you also support the California efforts, because you're talking about the national effort. I think it's H.R. 40. So I assume that also means you support the task force and the recommendations for reparations for California.
The task force is so important in part because it's helping to understand just what it would take and what are the right ways to go about this. Look, we have got to be imaginative about thinking about how we get equality of opportunity, and better outcomes for Black Americans. The status quo is just not cutting it. And so I'm proud that California has led the way in this conversation.
Representative Porter, why should I, as a Black voter in particular, choose you to represent me in the United States Senate?
Yeah, because I think that I am the person who understands that more of the status quo is shortchanging Californians, including Black Californians and our communities of color. We need to shake up Washington. We need Washington to put our needs and our challenges, whether that's climate justice, clean air and clean water, whether that's making housing costs more affordable, ahead of the interests of corporate donors. And I am the only candidate in this race who has never taken corporate PAC money, the only candidate who refuses lobbyist money. I am seeing directly in my time in Congress how those corporate donations then shape policy in ways that leave Black families behind.
Yeah, so many of the things that we have asked for, not just as Black families, but as progressives, have stalled in Congress, i.e. meaningful police reform, i.e. protection of our voting rights. How do you see breaking through that? Are you for ending the filibuster? Are you for what other remedies could we see? I mean, obviously a DC statehood things that can actually happen in the near term.
Yeah. So look, we have voted on many of these important issues in the House of Representatives, including voting for and passing the George Floyd Policing Act, voting for the John Lewis Civil Rights Act, voting for the LGBTQ Equality Act. All of those things went and died in the United States Senate. And so this is why my campaign theme is to shake up the Senate. Yes, that means abolishing the filibuster. It means thinking about some of the committees that we have in the Senate and we don't even have a full housing committee in the United States Senate. And that's the biggest challenge for most families, is paying the rent. It's why we're losing people from California, including our best and brightest college students. And so, we have to be willing to think about who do these structures serve? And in Washington, they serve corporate power and corporate interests and the ultra wealthy. They don't serve ordinary Americans. And an issue that we see this on very plainly is gun violence prevention. The vast majority of Americans support gun violence prevention, and yet the Senate not only won't pass it, they won't even take a vote on it. And that is a broken democracy. And so we absolutely need to change those rules so that we take up and down votes on these important issues. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act wasn't defeated in the Senate. It was never even voted on.
It never made it out of the House. Yeah, it never made it out of the House.
It did make it. Like a lot of these things made it out of the House. The Equality Act made it out of the House. George Floyd Justice and Policing made it out of the House. It never even got a vote in the Senate. So that's a big part of why I'm running for the Senate, is that is where the progress has been stopped and stifled. We shook up the House in 2018. I was part of a group of people who ran for the first time, new to politics after Donald Trump's election, to change it. And we did make progress in the House, but boy, the Senate is not serving ordinary Americans. It is serving corporate special interests, and they are not willing to take votes and show us where they stand on things that are popular with families in this country and are absolutely necessary to correct injustices.
We got a minute before we lose you, Representative Katie Porter. What do you want to leave us with today?
I want to inspire people to vote, to know that their voice matters. I hear all the time from people that they feel like it doesn't matter who they vote for, things don't change in Washington. I get that, and I have seen that, and that is what is animating this entire campaign. So if we keep doing what we've always done, and we keep sending the people who will defend the status quo, then we'll keep not seeing the things that we need. They won't happen. Things like making childcare more affordable, lifting up the wages for those who do that incredibly important work. So I am running to change the rules of Washington, to rewrite them so that they work better for all of us. And I would be honored to have your listeners vote in this race.
Congresswoman Katie Porter, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a terrific day.
And you as well. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Do you support public education? More than 38,000 educators at United Teachers Los Angeles do too. Together, we have fought for a better public education for our students and communities, and having you on our side has been essential in our fight for better public schools. Together, we will continue to work for public schools with green spaces, more mental health staff, smaller class sizes at every grade level, and a higher investment in the Black Student Achievement Plan. We are UTLA, and you make us stronger.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. Visit jpmorganchase.com/racial equity and get the tools to help reach your financial goals.
Los Angeles County needs a new district attorney.
I'm Jeff Chemerinsky, and I'm running for district attorney. I have served as chief of the Violent and Organized Crime section of the Los Angeles United States Attorney's Office. I've never lost a case. I have experience managing large teams of lawyers and staff, and I've done it in the largest federal judicial district in the nation. I've been endorsed by civil rights attorney Connie Rice, by former LA County Supervisor Yvonne Braithwaite Burke, and by the New Frontier Democratic Club, the oldest and largest African-American Democratic club in California. I'm a lifelong Democrat. As your next district attorney, I'll do everything I can to make our community safer and reform our justice system for every community in Los Angeles.
Jeff Chemerinsky, Democrat for district attorney, endorsed by the leaders we trust. Our community can trust Jeff Chemerinsky to stand up for us. Vote by March 5th. Paid for by Jeff Chemerinsky for District Attorney 2024.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
What a weird day. What a weird ride. Why do I say that? Because we're outside of our usual, way of doing things. Hour 1, local, hour 2, national, hour 3. We do a deep dive. But this is all in pursuit of knowledge and information so we could make informed choices in our March 2024 election, which is actually our February 2024 election, because it's already going on right now. Vote at any voting center. And we'll get back to being able to chop it up, after we get this work done for this election. Last day to vote is Tuesday. Look, some people I got a lot of texts yesterday, and one person even called me because when they heard that Mitch McConnell was stepping down as the Republican minority leader at this time, formerly majority leader, they were not clear whether he was actually leaving the Congress or if he was just leaving his position of leadership. He's just leaving his position of leadership. He's 82. He's been having health challenges, but he didn't say that. He is stepping down, but will be continuing to be in the Senate until the wheels fall off, I guess. I don't know what to say about that. Some people say term limits is the issue, or age limits. To me, it has to be competency, because otherwise you are discriminating and you are codifying ageism. But competency tests, well, I'm for that. Tavis Smiley's up next. He's got a jam-packed show for you today. As usual, we will have Freedman Friday tomorrow in our second hour to talk about reparations, a comprehensive conversation on reparations to build momentum. And we don't forget, KBLA1580.com. All of your election information is there now. Quoting Jim Brown on the way out the door, he says, success is a journey and not a destination. History's now, and we are making it together. I'm Dominique DiPrima. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Thursday with us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest. New York State Police are investigating after an envelope containing white powder was sent to the office of African-American Attorney General Letitia James. White powder was also sent to the judge who oversaw Donald Trump's